Kirk Ferentz does it once again. In a trying week for Iowa football, the Hawkeyes go on the road and they get a dominating victory behind the ground game and just enough in the passing game. We break it down today. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans, and we're with you each and every day, including today. Instant reaction after the Iowa 29-13 win against Maryland. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, one of the crazier weeks in Iowa football, the continued rumblings, rumors, speculation about what was happening. Jamari Harris doesn't make the trip. Cade McNamara doesn't make the trip. We talked a lot about that late in the week and leading up to the game, but it's not about the guys that didn't show up. It's about the guys that were there, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. Let's get all of the extras away. We got a quick turnaround before the Black Friday matchup against Nebraska as they get ready to kick off against Wisconsin. Let's talk about what we saw on the field. Enough of the histrionics, enough of the extras. The guys that went to College Park, Maryland, and battled and got a victory. I said it earlier in the week, and these are the times that we see Kirk Ferentz's teams at their best, back against the wall in a corner when everybody is counting them out. I wasn't counting them out, but I thought this was going to be a tough football game, and I was surprised that Iowa was favored like they were. They win the game by 16. I was shocked by the team total, which was 26.5. They go over that one. It was a dominating performance on the ground. Kaleb Johnson being the dude once again, just continues to make plays, continues to look so good. How about that 7-yard run up the left side when he stiff arms two different guys on it? He's a beast. The control that he plays with, the pacing that he has, the ability to set up and read the blocking. He's incredible to watch. And the likelihood is we're going to see him just one final time in a Hawkeye uniform on Black Friday against Nebraska. Let's enjoy it because this dude has been absolutely special. What he's done this season, breaking Sean Green's single season rushing touchdown record. That was great to see for him. And he said afterwards in the post-game interview on BTN, he's not done. He's still got more coming for the Huskers next week. We know Kaleb is the man, and he finishes the game 35 carries, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Credit as well to Kamari Moulton. Moulton goes out there and fumbles early in the football game. Just looked like he never got the exchange. And saw a couple of times Jackson Stratton maybe turned the wrong way on a couple of handoffs. That wasn't the case on that one that led to the fumble for whatever reason. And that's going to happen. This is another part that, is kind of underrated. Is just those simple things, the little things like handing the football off. You go from a quarterback that you've taken hundreds of reps from throughout the course of camp, going back to spring football, and you go to a new one. It's a little bit different from every single guy that's handing you the football. And that was the case there. Moulton coughs it up. Iowa had a great drive early on. Got to mention Tim Lester, the game plan that he put together, a very simplified version of what they want to do offensively, playing to the strengths of your quarterback. And that's what they did with Jackson Stratton. Loved. He's got a strong arm. So what do? We put him in those situations with those deep outs, those deep ins, those kind of plays that he can make. Keep it away from the middle of the field for the most part. Use the strong arm, stretch the boundary that way, and then, of course, rely on the ground game as Iowa was able to do. They were also able to rely on the ground game in a game where Jennings Dunker, arguably their best offensive lineman, was out because of injury. So Jennings Dunker is out. It's Nick DeYoung, who came back for an extra year. He was a guy that had finished up and looked like his playing career. There wasn't a starting spot for him, though he was going to compete. I always liked his versatility, the ability to play both inside and out, just because they really don't have a ton of those guys right now. They're trying to build up, the Trevor Locks of the world and players like that eventually are going to be tackles. But as we talked about in the past, this has been a team kind of built with a bunch of guards, and they didn't have that prototypical tackle. Well, Jennings Dunker is that dude. He's got the size out there, along with the strength and the athletic ability to get outside against some speed rushers. And we see Mason Richmond's going to be likely a guard at the next level. And I believe he will be an NFL guard. He's not your prototypical left tackle, but he has to play there just because of the way this offensive line has been built. So here comes DeYoung into the game, and he was adequate at the very least. In a game where they pile up nearly 300 yards rushing, I thought he did a really good job on that front. Patterson got 5 carries in the game as well in the ground game. Jackson Stratton talked about what we saw from him. Guy's got a live arm, that's for sure. And, here's the exciting thing. As I mentioned, Tim Lester. What excites me, I think, most is they found Jackson Stratton basically on the scrap heap, right? I mean, this is a kid, left Colorado State, didn't have anybody even looking at him. He goes to a camp, opens it up, so Tim Lester comes and watches him, likes what he sees, gives him just a walk-on opportunity. But if Tim Lester in that short of time can find a guy with that kind of arm talent, a guy that just won a Big Ten road game, even against a Maryland team that's not very good, regardless, he was able to do that. I think that gives you hope. I mean, his eye for talent, as we mentioned the other day, you look at when it was Brian Ferentz and John Budmeyer that were choosing the quarterbacks. They brought in Cade McNamara, Deacon Hill, and James Rezar. Yeah, that troika are the ones that they brought in. He goes out, he brings in Brendan Sullivan, which was exciting at the very least, and Jackson Stratton. I mean, you talk about how far they've surpassed just what we've seen out of those 3 quarterbacks, which is absolutely crazy to say. I remember when Jackson Stratton committed. You found out he's a walk-on. It was ho-hum. Look, I do a show every single day here. We're talking Hawkeyes every day. We're looking for content. And it was 2 minutes at the end of a show because we never thought we would get here, and yet there they are. Credit to him. Speaking of credit, how about Drew Stevens? This guy lost his gig a year ago. And speaking of the Nebraska game, this was a player that was benched. He had some struggles leading into that game, was struggling with the kicking. You talk about the mental side. Because as you see again today, it's never been a physical issue for Drew Stevens. He has one of the strongest legs that Iowa's had at the kicker position. And they've had some dudes, some powerful legs. And he's not the biggest guy by any means either. Another tackle in the game too, but 5 field goals, doing it, win at his back or not. I mean, that 54-yarder, that thing was good from 70. I've just absolutely missiled it in on the line drive kick. To bounce back in that fashion and to put yourself in conversation to be an all Big Ten player, to put yourself in the conversation likely going into next season on the Groza Award watch list, this dude is just putting together another monster season. And to bounce back in that fashion, look, in today's age of college athletics, things don't go well, end of the season, doesn't get a chance to kick an extra point or field goal in the final 2 games in the Big Ten championship and the bowl game a season ago. A lot of players, not from around here, would have found a place back home. I'm sure there would have been a ton of ACC schools that would have given him an opportunity. He didn't. He stuck it out. He stayed. He got it done. And with it, he's now got a tremendous opportunity in front of him and a guy that is probably going to get an opportunity at the next level. There's only 32 of those jobs in the NFL, but he's going to be going, I certainly think, that you're going to have. So a lot of talk here about Iowa on the offensive side. Well, they play 2 sides. We'll talk about that as we continue. Let's talk about the defense as they play incredibly well. Had a shout out in the first half. Maryland got a little something going in the second half, but the Iowa D showed up in a big time way. What does this mean going forward? We'll talk about that as we continue. Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's Rapid Reaction podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Well, basketball season is here. You love the sounds, the sights, what it is to be in the arena. Women's basketball, Carver Hawkeye Arena, sold out every single time. You're looking for tickets? Well, they got you covered with Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through different features. And it's not just for sports. Yeah, they got you covered. Football, basketball, wrestling, whatever it may be, they got you covered there, but a whole lot more. Tickets for theater, tickets for music, they have you with the Game Time app. My favorite feature of the Game Time app is the all-in pricing. I am a numbers guy, and I love to know exactly what my total is going to be up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Toggle the feature, it'll do just that with the all-in pricing. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and make sure you use the code It's Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Trent Condon back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast as I'm taking a peek up and watching the end of the Ole Miss Maryland game. Florida game. Back with you, rapid reaction right after things conclude here with the Iowa win against Maryland, 29-13. Talked a lot about the offense and given a lot of flowers there. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Jay Higgins playing hurt. Not shutting it down. Would have been easy for him to do. And he's a guy that you could definitely understand. He came back for another year. He came back for another season. And the season has not gone the way that we wanted. However, he's out there gutting it out. Gets another interception, his fourth of the season, leads the team in tackles once again. Love Jay Higgins. Love what he means and really the embodiment of an Iowa football player. You put in the work, you put in the time, you build yourself up, and eventually the payoff is going to be there. And that's certainly been the case for Jay Higgins. Ethan Hurkett, boy, what a performance out of him. 6 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss in the game. He was all over the place. I love that out of him. TJ Hall, learning on the job, still has work to do, but got that interception. I thought he played well, even giving up a big play early in the game. I thought TJ Hall really stepped up, and he can continue to see kind of what he is and what he's going to be for this Iowa football team. A couple other things in the game. We mentioned Hurkett on the other side, Llewellyn. It's just eventually a matter of time before he's going to get to the quarterback, and he did at the end. And I love looking through the stat sheet here and seeing Drew Stevens on the tackle list with the tackle in that one. Iowa slowed them down. It was a team that came in the most prolific passing team in the Big Ten. And yes, Edwards was compromised with that thumb injury, and then they knock him out a little bit later on. And still, it's a team with a couple of big-time wide receivers. Iowa playing without Jamari Harris, and they find a way. Kirk Ferentz gets another win, put another one on the sheet for him, and we got one more to go in the regular season. Iowa gets to their 7th win of the season. Difference between 7 and 8, it's not big unless you're holding a over 7.5 ticket or an under 7.5 ticket from back in the summertime from FanDuel, as I am. So we'd love to cash that one. But rallying the troops, getting it done, I'm just continually impressed. Though there's frustration, and there's frustration not going for 2 when it's 25-13. A 13-point difference is no different than 12, but they got the penalty, didn't get the play in. It just things happen. You get frustrated, but in the end, we've seen a lot of success. And though this year has not gone the way I think any Hawkeye fan anticipated that it would, and I know there's frustration that grows within the fan base, we do have it pretty good. As we see our conference foes and our protected rivals, Nebraska and Wisconsin, kicking off here for bowl eligibility on November 23rd. I was safely there. Iowa's had a lot of success. And as we've seen, programs even more higher stature than Iowa, Miami, Michigan, where you can go through the doldrums. One bad hire can set you back. Kirk Ferentz has this program in a good spot. And though next year will be a rebuilding year, he's done so many great things. Yeah, we want more. We all want more. I get that. But also don't miss what we have. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Rapid reaction here as the Iowa Hawkeyes get the win 29-13. Big weekend ahead. In fact, tonight, Iowa State on the wrestling mat. Looking forward to that. Tomorrow, the Iowa women return to the hardwood as they take on Washington State. We'll also get into, on our Monday podcast, we will dive into the disappointing loss for Iowa basketball on Friday night. Speaking of not overreacting, I don't think I'm going to in that one. Iowa's got to rebound better. I told you before that game That was my biggest concern going into it. And I think that was a huge difference. I got to be able to knock down shots. Josh Dix isn't real healthy. You can see that with the wrist injury. Sanford has not shot it very well. Need to get Peyton going. Need to get Owen Freeman. Need a confluence of everybody coming together. Traore was banged up. He had the massage gun on his leg. So there's a ton happening there. And you need to see this team get healthy. I think the upside is about as good as we've seen in many Fran teams, but you got to be healthy. As we talk about, the margin for Iowa football is not real significant. Same thing with the basketball team this year. I think they have a chance to be decent, pretty good, certainly a tournament team, and maybe even a little bit more than that. But you got to get healthy, and you got to get everything clicking as big stretches coming up here after their Tuesday matchup against South Carolina, upstate, up something. They then it starts to begin. You got the Big Ten games, you got the Iowa State games still on the horizon, so really got to ramp things up and get that going. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more on the podcast. You can check it out always here on YouTube. You can watch things. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Or you can listen, just search Locked On Podcast, Locked On Hawkeyes podcast on your favorite podcast listening device, whatever it is, Apple, Stitcher. We got you covered there. And you can find us that way as well. Thanks for being with us here. Rapid Reaction. Iowa gets it done 29-13. Also going to be coming up here in just a little bit on 600 WMT. Myself, Marv McNutt, and the whole crew with the post-game show after the Learfield coverage wraps up. And we'll have you covered over there for that one. 600 WMT, 800 KXIC in Iowa City, and also on 95.7 Sports Talk Radio in Cedar Rapids with the post-game show. I'll take you up until about 6 o'clock here this evening. I got to run. I got to get to that right now. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.